And an analysis of the federal budget has found middle to high income couples with children and Australians aged under 55 will benefit the most from the government's tax changes. The analysis has found the gap between rich and poor will widen under the government plan. Professor Robert Tanton is the Research Director and Principal Research Fellow at NATSEM at the University of Canberra.
With the high income earners and the increase they're getting and the low income earners and the small increase they're getting, you will get that increase in the difference between the rich and the poor, what we call inequality.
So how would you describe the effect of this policy on inequality?
Our modelling has shown that it will increase inequality. There was a slight increase in inequality. The problem we have with inequality is we measure it through something called a Gini coefficient. So we found that there was an increase in the Gini coefficient with this tax change.
But the government points out the top 5% will pay 1/3 of the tax collected. What's the strength of that argument in terms of fairness?
Look, we haven't done any modelling on that top 5%. We're looking at that the top 20%, looking at income quintiles.
Yeah, and so, but if the government was to put that forward, it is pointing that out, that the top 5% are paying that much in tax. If you're talking about fairness and equality, how do you counter an argument like that if you're putting forward something this morning saying that actually widens the gap in between rich and poor?
Yeah. So while those top 5% might be paying a lot of tax, the benefits of this tax cut are still going to that top 20%, which is what our modelling shows. And in fact, when we haven't looked at that top 5%, but we have a graph that shows the increasing amount being returned with those tax cuts, and that top 5% is gaining quite significantly from this. As I say, we haven't got the exact numbers for that, but the graph does show that they're benefiting significantly.
And what about the government arguing that someone on $200,000 will pay 10 times as much tax as someone on $45,000?
Look, I think talking about the tax that they're paying is not really the same about talking about the tax cuts that are being given and where those tax cuts are going. So that's what our modelling is showing, where those tax cuts are going, rather than who's paying the tax. And where the tax cuts are going is mainly to those high income earners.
And so the government was framing this budget in terms of statements around we want Australians to have a go and get a fair go and a commitment to fairness. How do those statements fit in with what you found about the tax cuts?
Look, when we talk about fairness, I suppose it depends on what we mean by fairness, and fairness is a subjective statement. But as I say, the modelling that we've got shows that those high income earners are going to be gaining the most from this. Now, whether you say that that's fair or not fair, that's up to people to decide. I'm not going to say that, but you know, that's what the modelling is showing. The high income earners are gaining the most from these tax cuts, and significantly more than low income earners.